Hi guys, welcome back to the MCM Buzz stage here live at MCM Birmingham Comic Con. And I'm very proud to welcome another guest. We have the Bionic Woman herself on the sofa, Lindsay Wagner. Morning. How are you today?
Good. Forgot I wasn't mic'd on the body mic.
I know, you have to hold this one, I'm afraid. And so, obviously, we haven't seen you for a few days. What have you been doing while you've been here?
Well, of course, I went on a Beatles tour.
Wow.
In, in Liverpool.
Has to be done.
Had to be done, yeah. And then went visited some friends up in Cleveland area and stayed up in there. Got chilled a bit.
Is this your first time in Birmingham?
No, actually, I was here, I don't know, was it 8 years ago or something like that? 8, 10 years? It's been a while. But it was the same place, same hotel, everything. It was kind of a little homecoming.
Reminiscing.
Yeah, and I've met some nice people who were here then and showed me pictures of us then and us now and said, don't ever do that again.
Changed much a little bit. Right. Oh, fantastic. Well, that's one thing, obviously, that brings people back to Comic Cons is people that they love from shows old and new. So for you, in terms of shows that you love, what would you be sort of nerdy about? What do you think is your sort of favorite show?
Well, it's kind of funny when you talk to someone in my generation. I mean, it's hard for younger people to fathom life without television. But quite frankly, when I was a kid, television was just this new weird thing that, maybe 1/10 of the population even had. So for us, everything was new and odd. And, we used to watch Robert Young in Father Knows Best, which you probably don't even know what that is. What else was on? Something called Sea Hunt. But it wasn't a thing then. And then I started acting so young, and I was working all the time that I never watched television. So I didn't even really get into television up until when I kind of started not working quite so much, kind of semi-retired, not fully retired, but So it's kind of new stuff for me, oddly.
So what current shows then, are you into at the moment?
Well, I think a really wonderfully written comedy is Mom, starring Allison Janney. Do you have that here?
Yes.
Yeah. That's a brilliant show. I mean, to me, that's the epitome of edutainment. They're talking about addiction, they're talking about recovery, but you never have any clue that they're really showing you or teaching you something that would help people, because it's just so well written. It's so funny and lovely. That's one of my favorites.
Would you like to do a sitcom?
I've never done a sitcom, but I would definitely like to do comedy. That's the one thing I have never done. I mean, not really. Bionic Woman, we did a lot of comedy in that on purpose, but the essence of it was not such, so we had to kind of squeeze it in when we could,
Are there any particularly funny moments in Bionic Woman that are memorable to you?
Well, there were a lot of them, but honestly, the one that sticks in my mind is not something I did, but something Richard Anderson did. So Oscar Goldman, right? Mr. Serious, Mr. Straight, Mr. Stuffy. And we did the show about where Jamie went undercover as a nun. And he was trying to get the car in, he was trying to get the people in to come bust the bad guys. And at the monastery, they had some sheep that were out there keeping him from getting in. And he said, "Sister, get the flock out of here." And everybody went, "Richard?" He says, "We got to leave that in. That was too good, So that was funny.
An ad-lib, basically, but worked well. And filming The Bionic Woman, and sort of looking at it now, it's obviously quite an action-packed show. For you, were there any sort of particular sort of stunts or sort of running scenes or anything that you remember that were difficult or particularly sort of memorable?
Hairy? Do you use that term over here? Yeah. Well, there was a time in Las Vegas where we were filming up on top of a hotel, right? One of the big hotels, 40 stories, I don't know what. And we were doing a helicopter scene, and I think it was the fembot thing, and where the bad guys are getting away in a helicopter, and Jamie goes to catch them, and she runs up on the top of the roof where they're taking off and runs over and grabs a hold of the skid of the helicopter and hangs on, and they fly around town trying to shake her off, and she eventually climbs in and saves the day, of course. But when we were doing that, my stunt girl had gone around and done all of the stuff, belted and latched and secured and flying around town, hanging from the helicopter and all that kind of stuff. And then they said, just before the sun went down and we had to stop shooting, we haven't got the close-up of Lindsay yet. Quick, let's get the close-up of Lindsay. So they called me up, and they had an airbag on the top. The helicopter, they said, now, okay, Lindsay, come on, we're going to lift up about 4 feet off the airbag. You're going to grab a hold of it. We'll hold you up about 4 feet over the bag, get a few, a little bit of footage of you looking down, looking up, and then starting to crawl in, and then we'll cut. You just drop into the bag. And I said, okay. And I'm looking around for the stunt guys to get ready to put the security belt on me, and he goes, we don't have time for that. And I said, what? Excuse me? We don't have time for that? And so anyway, after like a couple minutes of freaking out, fine, it's just going to take you up 4 feet. You've done a 1-story jump before, you've done that kind of thing. We're not even going to be that high. Okay. So I grabbed a hold of the skid, and the helicopter is lifting up, and as he lifts up, just gets about 4 feet up where he's supposed to be. The wind in Las Vegas picks up really bad in the afternoon, and it was, in fact, afternoon. And so the wind was hitting the side of the building and racing up and crossing, going just right across, which meant that the helicopter couldn't stay over the airbag. So I'm hanging by my hands only, and I'm not like Mr. Macho, and it's going like this, and I'm watching the airbag underneath me go like that, and I'm freaking out, and all of a sudden my hands freeze, and so now the helicopter is having to pull up high to get away from that cross draft that's created by the side of the building. So now I'm looking down, and the airbag's not only going like this, but it's getting smaller, and I eventually, they were yelling at me, okay, we got what we needed. And they're yelling at me, and they're saying, go, go, go. And I see the airbag like this, and he's going, go, go. And I'm drop. And I said to myself, go, but my hand said, absolutely not. And I don't know how long I was up there, but I couldn't get my hands to let go. Now I'm talking to my hands as if they're not me, or if there's somebody else. Fear. Yeah. And so anyway, eventually I dropped and just hit the corner of the airbag and rolled off. And everybody was laughing. And I thought, that's really strange. What a bunch of sadists. I almost died, and they're sitting there laughing. But I was so shaken that I wanted to cry, but I didn't want to do it in front of everybody. So my mom happened to be there that day, of all days. Have your mother standing there looking at you like, oh my God. So I just looked at her and I said, get me out of here. And so she came and got me, and we went into the stairwell, and then I just broke down and I started to cry. And after I had my catharsis and I felt better, I said, why was everybody laughing? And she said, well, you have to admit that was pretty funny to keep your composure like that. And I said, like what? I had no composure. And she said, no, when you held your nose. I said, what? And she said, when you let go, you went. She said, that's what you used to do when you were a little girl and we tried to teach you to go off the high dive board. I said, I held my nose? And she said, yes. So she said, oh my God, you've reverted to 7 years old going off. I was that frightened. I just went into this abreactive state and held my nose and went down like when I couldn't dive because I was too afraid. So then I came out and everybody was clapping, and I went, nothing to it, got to keep you laughing. Took total credit for the joke.
Worked well in the end. Well, stunts like that and the show overall just being amazing, and you being amazing in it, that earned you an Emmy for that role. Obviously now it's a huge thing to get such an award. Did it mean as much back in those days?
I think it always has. Definitely, it always has. Yeah.
Did it open any doors for you?
Oh, my doors were wide open by that time. Honestly, the show was so popular then because it was such a groundbreaker, you know, and it was so successful that it was just a real honor to have that happen because of the nature of our show. And we were up against other dramatic shows that were really just heavy dramas. And so to win in the face of that, Seda Thompson and all kinds of people, you know, it was really just, I was amazed. I really was honored.
Well, congratulations for that. I mean, it
Thank
was
you.
fantastic. So if you have any questions in the audience, then please put your hands up and I'll come to you. Oh, great. We have one straight away.
Hello, Lindsay. My question for you is, when you were doing the Bionic Woman, were the producers very keen for you to keep total fitness all the time and special diets, and because it was a very physical role? Were the producers putting any pressure on you to do that?
Not really. We were a mid-season replacement, and they didn't have time to think about anything except getting it on the air. You know, they were doing their job, I was doing mine, and it just doing the show was, there was no time to keep fit. I mean, when would I do that? You know, I'd have to be exercised in my sleep because we were working 16, 18 hours a day. And so just the actual physicality of doing the show was such a workout in and of itself. I used to say it was my karma because I refused to work out before that, you know. And so I used to say that God was punishing me by saying, okay, if you don't work out, I'm going to give you a job like this. So, you know.
Hi, Lindsay. Growing up in Portland, like we did, I thought it was amazing. Hello. Because you were from where I was, you know, being a fellow Portlander and being very into the Bionic Woman, because I always thought, oh, bionic fingernails, opening cans of tuna fish. Is there any actors that you haven't worked with that you would possibly like to work with in the future, or maybe one that you have worked with that was like the actor? Yeah.
Oh, that's a hard thing to say because there's so many wonderful actors today. Honestly, the acting in general has gotten just better and better on television, in the features. It's just wonderful. I mean, I never used to, actually, quite frankly, I never used to be very interested in watching stuff because I just loved making it and doing it. But now, I just love watching the skill and the naturalness that's come about, even in television, because they had more time to do that in features, so there was always a little bit more in features in that way than there was in television. But today it's just across the board. So gosh, who all would I like to work with? Should have been prepared for this, but I've got this flood of names coming in, faces coming into my. There's a lot. There's just a lot. Yeah.
You can ask Lindsay later.
Yeah,
the
in
signing.
the Q&A.
We have lots
Q&A
of time.
a little bit. Let me think about it.
But at the moment, we have run out of time. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for joining us. It's
My
been
pleasure.
a pleasure again.
Thanks for having me.
And yes, you can catch Lindsay at her signing booth and at a panel later. And stay tuned on our channel, YouTube, the MyMBuzz. Also follow us on Twitter for chances to win some signed photos, including this lovely one that Lindsay has signed for us, and others like from Tom Meissen. And we will be back very shortly with all the anime panels, so stay tuned. Thank you again.